on the northern and western borders.
And that's something that we always like to make abundantly clear, is that this has been a proxy war up until these past recent weeks. Proxy war, that basically means Iran is, we always say, Hamas is an Iran-backed group, Hezbollah is an Iran-backed group, the Houthis are an Iran-backed group. I gotta ask, when we talk about Iran and Israel relations, has there ever been in history a tit-for-tat like this between Israel and Iran directly, without the proxies?
Absolutely not, no. And it might be notable to many that these two countries were closely allied and had robust trade and security partnerships and agreements in the 60s and 70s, and their cooperation and coordination between Iranian and Israeli officials, and with including Iranians in the royal court in the 1970s. So no, and then obviously all ties were severed after the '79 revolution. So all of this is entirely new ground, unprecedented, and we're calling it a shadow war, a proxy war, and this is something Iran has been waging since the '80s, directly and indirectly against Israel and other targets that it perceives to be legitimate targets.
I'm curious, how does the U.S. factor into this? We were just talking with another one of our analysts who said that Israel very much cares about what the U.S. thinks and what the U.S. says about this war. How is the U.S. going to think about, and I should actually preface it by saying this, what has the U.S. been saying this week about a possible Israeli retaliation to Iran? Has the U.S. supported that idea or said, don't retaliate?
Well, we know that from the comments that were made public, President Biden, when he spoke with Netanyahu over the weekend, said, given the fact that almost 99% of the missiles and projectiles Iran launched were intercepted by Israel, by the United States, by the United Kingdom and other allies, Biden said, and I quote, take the win, meaning that Israel suffered no casualties aside from one young Bedouin girl who was tragically injured, but really no damages and casualties otherwise. So take it as a win, he said, and use that to stay your hand and not respond in a way that would instigate or trigger Iran to go even further. So we know Biden made that statement, and now it looks like Netanyahu said he would consider that, but that he would ultimately do what he felt was in Israel's best interest when it came to its national security. So it seems like we've hit a limit to how far the United States can exert its influence and diplomacy, and it creates a sensitive. It's a sensitive moment, especially this being a election year, with funding for Israel and for Ukraine being such a divisive issue in not just between the president and these leaders, but also within Congress.
This is going to be reported as likely an Iran-Israel situation. Iran, Israel directly going at each other, but there's two other states that are mentioned in tonight's preliminary reports, Iraq and Syria. We're also hearing of explosions out of those two states. And I will make this abundantly clear that we are still learning exactly what's taking place in some of these wider regions around the Middle East. But what could you possibly imagine as the tie here? Iraq, Syria, what's the connection with Iran?
Yeah, so these are both, in fact, essentially almost vassal states of Iran. Iran operates with a relative free hand throughout parts of Syria in cooperation with the Russian government, which also has tremendous influence over Syria. And Iraq is a majority Shia country aligned, whose politics and religious ideology aligns with that of Iran's hardline clerics. What Iran has done is it has essentially supported militias in Syria and Iraq who are acting at its behest as agents oftentimes. And we know that there are weapons being transferred from Iran to those territories, and the capability for these militia groups to fire missiles, rockets, and other attacks against Israel from Iraqi and Syrian soil. So presumably it was these installations, these mobile missile units, these batteries, these other weapons facilities that Israel was targeting in attacking Syria and Iraq. Again, assuming these reports are verified.
How long do you think it will be until we actually learn any sort of tangible information? Obviously, the day is just starting in Israel. Maybe here's a better question. Israel didn't ever take official responsibility for that attack in Damascus. Do we anticipate that they will, if this is an Israeli attack, do we anticipate that they will take responsibility for this one?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it would be difficult not to, given that, as I understand it, the type of projectiles that were used in what we're hearing in Esfahan and others locations were missiles fired from fighter jets. So again, it's hard to see any other country in that region that would do something like this, and it fits the timeline with when Israel said it would be willing to respond. So I think we will know by morning our time, in about 12 hours, I think, once some of the literal and proverbial dust clears, and we can get a sense of exactly what targets were hit, what installations were impacted, what the damage and fallout from that will be.
I'll read a little bit of what the AP is saying for now. Iran fired air defense batteries early Friday morning after reports of explosions near the city of Isfahan, the state-run IRNA news agency reported. So the fact that defense batteries were activated, for anybody who isn't aware, defense batteries are basically air defense artillery that we're talking about. So when we speak about defense batteries being activated, we speak about, and here's something that people really have been discussing a lot. This has been a hot button topic, is Iran's nuclear program. I know that you have particular expertise in Iran and its history. Where does that program stand? At least what do we know about it?
Well, we know that such a program exists. The estimate now is that Iran has maybe about a 90-day, 3-month breakout capability, which means that it has the ability to, within a span of 3 months, produce 1, maybe 2 nuclear weapons at most. It has sufficient quantities of enriched uranium and plutonium, and it has the ballistic missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. However, to get everything assembled and get it ready to go, and to increase the quantity to meet a nuclear weapons threshold will take some time. But estimates from intelligence agencies here in the U.S. and elsewhere indicate it's about a 3-month window, which is, and that window shortens the longer this crisis continues, and the longer that Iran's nuclear program goes unmonitored and unchecked, that window can shorten from 90 days to 60 days and even less. And that's really the biggest fear, is that Iran could, within a matter of days or weeks, fabricate a functioning nuclear weapon that could be fired across continent.
What are going to be the questions that you are most looking forward to getting the answers to in the immediate hours as the situation unfolds?
The most important question I want to know is what targets were struck. What are they? Military? Are they nuclear facilities? Are they petroleum centers, refineries, anything that would impact Iran's commerce? Is it part of its electrical or power grid? We'll have a better idea of what, or were they just launched into relatively empty areas, similar to what Iran claimed it was doing? Is this Israel sending a warning of what it's capable of doing, and that it can breach Iran's missile defense capabilities as well? So I think once we get a better sense of the targets that were engaged, that will tell us a lot more about what this was meant to do and where it's going next.
All right, Benjamin, is there anything else you feel is worth mentioning before we wrap up here?
Meanwhile, what's happening in Gaza. Israel has said that it intends to launch an incursion into Rafah. This doesn't help. This doesn't make it easy to be fighting a multi-front war like this. So again, while this is happening, the war with Hamas in Gaza still continues. And it's unclear as to what direction that will take while these missile exchanges or rocket exchanges are taking place between Iran and Israel.
It's important to note that U.S. and Israeli officials did speak today about a potential Rafah invasion. It's something we've been talking about for over a month, maybe months now, this looming Rafah expanded ground invasion. I got to ask, when we talk about Gaza specifically right now, the fighting there hasn't stopped, correct? It's still going on.
It's minimized. It is going on. We're not seeing a huge influx of forces, doing these big, large-scale raids. We're not seeing, rocket or missiles firing or bombs being dropped yet. I believe at this point they're really being more targeted and precise. They're trying to identify the remaining command and control structures that Hamas has. I think they said there's maybe 4 of them now. operating in and around Rafah, and trying as
Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to put that on there so you guys can see what's going on. I will be doing an update and reporting on this stuff, on what's happening here. I don't know if I'll be able to find anything funny about it. It seems like we're getting to become a lot worse than what I thought, because now Iraq, Iran, and Syria are under attack by Israel, and our country is the only stupid idiots that are waiting there to get involved with this. I don't know what we have to gain from this, but when I get back to you guys, we'll talk about it. All right, stay